Welcome here to this session of LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn to locate expert sources, promote your work, and build your personal brand. This is something that I think is really an important topic for journalists. And we had some of our journalists who are working in Africa who really said that this is something that they would love to learn more about. They requested this topic. And so we are thrilled to have journalists from around the world joining us. This is part of the Media Project, which is a nonprofit organization that serves journalists internationally. We help to train and equip journalists in their craft, and specifically focusing on the role of religion and how we cover religion as journalists. It is really exciting. We host training programs both here in the United States and also around the globe. Pre-COVID, that meant that we had several of our journalism institutes, one of them in Latin America that meets in Chile, one in the Asia Pacific that has hosted a few events and trainings in Indonesia. We have an annual event in Prague every year in the summer, which is great for student journalists as well to become a part of. We have an Africa Film Project, which is really an exciting way that we help to equip journalists in Africa to tell stories in their home countries. And our Africa membership is really strong, which is a lot of fun for us to be able to connect with our friends and colleagues there as well. But one of the things I love is anytime the Media Project hosts a virtual event like this, you know that there's some people who are getting ready to go to bed, other people like Yumi just waking up for the day. It's really fun just to see the kind of the silver lining here during COVID, that we do have this ability to join virtually. And so I do want to also welcome students from Texas Christian University who are on today's call as well. I'm a professor there, and really am excited for them to get to learn from you too. So without further ado, we want to welcome our guest today, Yumi Wilson. Yumi is a full-time professor at San Francisco State University, and she can tell us some about her work there, but she's also truly an expert when it comes to LinkedIn and has worked for LinkedIn, created LinkedIn for Journalists group, which has grown significantly. And during her time at LinkedIn, she has really helped to focus on helping journalists better equip themselves to be able to use LinkedIn, both for building your own professional development network, but also like identifying sources, building sources, being able to understand that LinkedIn really is a different social media platform and one that can really be used to our advantage as journalists. So Yumi, first of all, we thank you for getting up early at this time to try to make it a good time for everyone across the globe, but welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so great to have you. As you can tell, I mean, we have had a great response. I'm trying to manage the people joining at the same time. So we have a lot of people who are really eager to learn about this topic. So I am going to stop my screen share so that when you're ready, you can start yours. But welcome, Yumi. How are things in San Francisco?
Oh, well, I'm sure it is somewhat like the rest of the world. We're all, each day, it's a new day. What I've been saying since the pandemic started is each day is a new day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I think is all we can do.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for having me. I know that there is a little bit of that Zoom fatigue. We've been on virtual for a long time. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box. I'll try to check from time to time. I really like this to be more of a conversation because I know that some of you might, in fact, I'd love to know how many of you have a LinkedIn account? If you want to use your hand thingies or okay. Okay. So I would say at least half, if not more, of the folks, and we have about almost 60 people. There are a number of you, though, that don't have a LinkedIn profile, so that's really helpful to me. The thing about the LinkedIn platform I want to say from the beginning is if you were to have like very specific questions on a functionality issue, because functionality on LinkedIn changes dramatically every year, I might be able to refer you to a function issue, but mostly this talk will be about what is the purpose of LinkedIn? How might it help you in the future? And certainly as a journalist, but also as someone trying to build their brand. And as writers, I think that's very, very important. So thank you for sharing with me on that. All right. Are there any other questions before I get started? I'm going to start with my regular presentation form. Okay. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, and Yumi, I'm enabling it, making sure everybody, if they share in chat, that it does go to the whole group. I think for some reason the settings are, so if you have something to say and just message me, even if you can't share to everyone, I'll get that fixed as quickly as possible. But we do, like Yumi said, we want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, you could raise your hand in that function where you could do that at the bottom of your screen, and it'll be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
and essentially, please do stop me because I can see that some people have been on LinkedIn, so you might be way ahead, and then others might really, want to stop and say, hey, what are you talking about right now? And that would be great too. So the way that I think of this presentation is leveraging LinkedIn. And again, I used to work for LinkedIn. I was there a total of 3 years, and they were amazing years where I learned a lot about how technology has impacted and altered our lives as journalists. But I'm not there anymore. So I can certainly be more candid. And yeah, this is really take what you want from this and then leave the rest behind. So I wanted to give you some stats. I think it's always good to think about where LinkedIn is in the kind of the world of social media. And the numbers continue to go up. So they are currently at a little bit less than 800 million users. And I think the important thing, especially when I'm dealing with just an American audience, I often remind journalists in the US, most of the users are outside of the US. And I think that always surprises folks, whether I'm talking to journalists or other companies in the US, they're always surprised. But this is true across all platforms, social media. So that could work to your advantage, knowing that. 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn and other social media tools to find their next candidate. And so if you are interested in getting work or new opportunities, I'm going to talk about what really works based on the algorithm and also based on research. But the one thing I will say here is when recruiters are looking for candidates, they are often looking for passive candidates, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And then the question that always comes up is, well, who is on LinkedIn? Is it going to be beneficial? The younger generations are definitely becoming part of the LinkedIn platform. 60% are between 25 and 34. So that's something I think that's also helpful. These numbers came from Omnicore. Omnicore does a yearly or quarterly review of data on LinkedIn and other platforms. So why should journalists be on LinkedIn? One way to think about it is, as we all know, if you are a researcher, a reporter, a writer, a producer, a storyteller, you can use various social platforms to find people, to tell your story, to promote your brand, to build a following, to gain community. So the question would be, okay, well, why do I need to add another platform that doesn't seem very interesting most of the time? It seems quite promotional. So one stat that I thought was important from Muckrack is that when it comes to social networks, journalists find number one, you guessed it, is Twitter. Twitter is definitely where I think if you are working as a journalist and you have to cover daily or breaking, you're going to want to be on Twitter. Then the next is still, believe it or not, Facebook. And then we've got LinkedIn. So of the platforms as we see them now, journalists do in fact use and engage LinkedIn, 26%. And they're there not only building brand and identity, but they're also finding sources and promoting their content, which I can also talk about. So I think I explained why LinkedIn. And now I want to talk about how do you stand out on the LinkedIn platform. So LinkedIn data shows you only have about 5 to 10 seconds to impress a potential employer online. It's very much like how we used to meet in person, right? We'd see someone at the coffee shop or have a coffee with them, and we had, a very short amount of time to say, this is who I am. Please take me seriously. Please give me a job. Whatever it is, fill in the blank. We did that in person. I think what the pandemic has really brought home, but even before that, I knew, which is the power of virtual or social media, which is we can make that impression based on how we position or how we frame our stories online. And yeah, we only have a short amount of time to do that. So the first thing I would say is definitely, if you are going to build a LinkedIn profile, or if you have one, make sure you have a photo. The reason why is that statistics show that if you have a photo, you're 21 times more likely to be viewed, your profile. And I remember when I worked at LinkedIn, I would overhear people saying, it's creepy when people don't have a photo. So that's the other thing. You want to kind of put your best foot forward, thinking about 5 to 10 seconds how to impress yourself. The other thing I'm going to say here is, unlike other social platforms like Instagram, which I love, where I could post a lifestyle photo, maybe me camping in the woods, that could be a profile photo. LinkedIn research has shown that the best type of photo on this platform is something where you are showing your face, shoulder level and above, and it's more definitely on the professional side. So those are things to think about. Now, a cover photo. People call them different things on different platforms, but it's the space right here, and you can call it a wall banner, but it really is a valuable piece of real estate. Again, 5 to 10 seconds, first impressions matter. So imagine that you have your headshot of choice in the headshot here, and then you have a photo that tells your story. I've worked with nonprofit groups, for example, who have a campaign that they're trying to do, let's say, to end hunger. And so what their PR teams will do is put a banner or something that they've created in-house and promote it externally by putting it here on their cover photo. That's an opportunity for each of you to think about, what are my values? What do I want people to see when they come to my profile? So not just words matter. Words are not the only thing that matter, right? Instagram has shown us that, but the photos, the visuals do. And so I would definitely encourage you to think about it. And I'll show you some examples when we go live. Okay, other things to think about is, and by the way, let me know if you have any questions. Yes, okay. So here we can see the person's name, Michaela Bouchard. And then what we see, many people think of this as the title. So when you're filling this profile in, many of you will put student, or you'll put reporter. The only problem with putting a one-word response to this area that LinkedIn calls the headline. So now, if LinkedIn itself calls this place the headline, we now know as journalists, we need to make this shine. This is where people are going to connect with you first. So what I always encourage, and when I coach and work with people, I say, think about your elevator pitch. Who are you beyond that one job? Who are you beyond being a student, right? We're all students of life, but what is the story that I'm trying to tell? I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig here. So if I wanted to write a new headline about me, I would think about some of the accomplishments and challenges I've had just in the last few years and where I'm going. I definitely have been taking a lot more creative writing classes, playing more with art form. I have traveled and gotten back into travel and realized I really miss traveling. So in writing a headline, I might say something like, a journalist and journalism educator seeking new adventures around the world. Something like that. And that's called a headline. So I want each of you to think about that today. I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit later. It's all for you. So, having a pen or paper or just your computer and ready to kind of write down that if you were to have to write a headline, what would it be? Things to think about are inspiring quotes, achievements, vacation spots, people, places, and things important to you. Okay, so more about the headline. Now, on the left, you have a student or you have a journalist and author. So, Ellen, is there a question? No? Okay, so, I'm probably mangling the name, so I apologize, but let's say here, Eleanor, okay, she has what we call keywords. So that's also a different approach to writing your great headline, which is thinking about, well, Yumi, I have a lot of different things I do. I'm not just a writer, but I'm also a runner. I love athletics. How can I capture all of those things? One way to do that is through a keyword approach. And you can see here Eleanor writing author, journalist, screenwriter, and advocate. Now, why this is also strategically a good thing is because the algorithm uses keywords from what I've called the headline, and they put it into all these factors that go into the algorithm. So let's say a recruiter is looking for someone who has skills as a journalist, but also has been an author. Because Eleanor put in the words author and journalist in two of the most important spots on the profile, she might, well, she will show up higher in search results. The other thing that you must consider is the algorithm also favors profiles that are complete. So you know how you get that notification when you fill out a profile, you're at beginner level or intermediate level and you're advanced, because the more sections you fill out, they're actually rewarding you. So again, I would encourage you to do two things, really easy, not today maybe, but in the next few days. If you have a LinkedIn profile, change your headline so it captures who you really are and has those keywords, but also take time to fill out as many sections as you can. And again, I can show you live what I mean. Now on the right, on my right, you can see that Eileen Zimmerman has taken a different approach to the headline. Licensed social worker, journalist, and author of Smacked, a story of white-collar ambition, addiction, and tragedy. So this is also highly encouraged. Let's say you have a book that's coming out. This is the perfect place to promote it, because remember, most people will not click on your full profile. In fact, if they're not part of your first or second degree network, they can't even see your full profile. So using this headline again is a valuable thing to do. I see a question in the chat box. Okay, cool. All right. All right. So now, before you write, here is what you want to consider. Okay, I'm going to call this thing the unique value proposition. So if you've taken marketing or done anything with content marketing, SEO, stuff like that, then you're going to know about that unique value proposition. But the idea is, without getting all lost in the terminology, is each of us has something that makes us unique. And so even though if we all in the room say we're journalists, we each of us, we do it somewhat differently. So that's one of the things I'd like you to think about today, starting today. It could be a passion area. So maybe it's not even something that you've done. When I'm working with students, they'll often say to me, well, Yumi, I haven't done the thing that I really want to do. How do I deal with that? You can be aspirational in your headline, right? So if you're interested in investigative journalism and yet you haven't done it yet, you could have a headline that says storyteller seeking a path or aspiring to cover meaningful investigative projects for, global newsrooms, or, whatever it is. It's that aspirational quality you can put into what makes you unique. Now, the other thing to think about is, what are you really, really good at right now? So again, many of us in journalism, I think we're told and we're trained to say, well, I have 5 years of experience in X, or I have 10 years of experience in Y. But the thing that I'd like you to think about is, when you're thinking about, let's say you do a lot of breaking news stories, do you really enjoy doing those breaking news stories? Do you see yourself continue to write breaking news stories for the next 10 years? And the reason I say that is because every keyword you put into your profile will designate kind of it will determine who you are, at least on paper. And so I've met a number of people who are like, well, I don't want to do that thing that I did 5 years ago. I want to do something different. Well, this is again where we get to change that by putting in aspirational or keywords, and I can show you how live. Okay, who do you serve? Who is your audience? So that's also going to be different for each of us, right? So if we're out there and we're trying to tell stories about women, for example, then something about my headline would indicate that I'm very interested in, let's say, equality or equity among gender or across gender and gender orientation. If that's something I'm very, very interested in, I'm going to showcase that in my headline, but also I'm going to talk about in another place called the summary. Don't worry, I will talk about that soon. And again, this question of unique value proposition. So think about what that is for you. And remember, it is not your job title. It is punchy and it's solution oriented. Okay, let me give you some examples. So here is a journalist with a marketing mindset. So here's someone who said, I am a journalist, but I am also very savvy when it comes to, creating successful PR campaigns, or I know how to make things go viral. Those are all skills that make you unique, and that's the key. Here's another example. Marketing professional with an entrepreneurial mindset and a knack for storytelling. So this is also great because we can see the keywords marketing professional. So that's going to help in the algorithm if that's the kind of job you're looking for. But the entrepreneurial word tells us this person believes I'm independent. I can do things on my own. So again, showing the unique value proposition. Here's another one. Senior advancement and comms professional fighting for sexual assault survivors and patients' rights. So this is another great example of a headline because it tells us who the person is in terms of the body of work she's done, but also tells us what she's truly fighting for. This is such a great way to tell someone right away, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm interested in. And even though my resume says that I've done 10 years in banking, you can tell that that's not what I'm doing now. And here's one, government relations expert advocating for American Indians and social justice. These are all headlines that were created by some of the participants in my previous workshops who did this, kind of after this kind of brainstorming exercise. So these are things that we're going to try now. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the next it's 8:26 minutes, and you can go off, video. I'll turn my video off too. And you're going to craft a new headline. And I'm just going to go and leave this screen up just to give you some examples. And if you'd like to share, you could type it into the chat box when we return, or you can unmute and tell me more about it. But all right, it's 8:26, so let's return at 8:30.
So depending where you are, just 3 minutes. From now.
Okay, as some of you continue to write, I do see several responses, so I'm going to get started. Now, first, I do see in the chat box, can you hear me? Is there a problem with audio right now, or?
No, I think maybe
Okay.
somebody joined
Yes,
during
it's
the
back now.
exercise.
It's okay now.
Okay,
Can hear you.
great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read some of the responses I've gotten. So let's see. Oh, and then there was a question about the algorithm. So I just want to be clear on that. The algorithm for the LinkedIn, just like Google, right? They have a certain code or a set of codes they use to determine what comes up high in search results. So within the LinkedIn platform, certain keywords, where we put them and how we put our profile together will weigh differently in the algorithm that's used to surface what comes up high. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
And quick question, Yumi, Julia Bicknell had put a question early in the chat asking if you put hashtags in your headline or not.
Well, LinkedIn, of course, now does encourage people to use hashtags. The question for me is, how do hashtags affect search results? Because remember, on LinkedIn, somewhat like Facebook, profiles are usually private.
Mhm.
So content and profiles are not as searchable as if you were on Twitter or even Instagram, where many more people have open accounts.
Okay, gotcha.
But you can always, it's always, to me, it's not a, it, so let me say this. For example, on Instagram, data shows that using 11 hashtags is the most effective. So
Really?
yeah, most bang for your buck, 11.
Okay.
But the data is not clear on what that means on the LinkedIn platform.
Okay.
Probably because it's relatively new. And also, again, it's like, how do you search? I mean, what is the value of a search if I can only search content from those I'm connected with or loosely connected with, meaning secondary? So,
Okay, interesting.
okay, so let's see. We've got some. Okay, and I'm going to go to the top so I try not to miss anyone. Okay, experienced sports editor seeking to grow sports journalism and mentor young sports journalists. I like that a lot. What do you guys think?
I like it.
I've got a
Mhm.
steal these. Just going to, okay. Okay, so what I like about the, I'm sorry, before I realize, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Stop the share. Okay. Okay. So, experienced sports editor. One thing I would say is in the headline, you want to choose whether you're going to capitalize every word or lowercase every word. So, you want to have some sort of decision. It doesn't have to follow AP style or APA style or Chicago style, but I think that it's just that for if we are trying to get hired as writers, oftentimes recruiters want to see if you have your own like decision, like you've made a choice in font, you've made a choice in lowercase, because some of it's uppercase. I know it's just the title. The word experience to me, I would definitely change, only because when I say I'm experienced, that could mean I have 5 years of experience. But when you say you have experience, it could mean you have 17 years of experience. So there might be a different way. The other thing I'd love to see in this, what type of sports do you love? Is there a particular specialty within that? Also, when you say seeking to grow, to me, if you say experience, doesn't that mean you've already had some accomplishments? So one idea is to say veteran sports editor, helping news companies or news teams grow and reach young people. So showing that more in action, I think would be really helpful. So just a couple of tweaks and then you've got it.
Awesome.
Okay. Next one, senior radio presenter and science communicator. I love the duality for sure. What I'd like to see though, because presenter is different, like the definition could be different from one country to the next or one place to the next. I'd love to see what that means to you. So does it mean that you're on air? And if that means on air, I'd love to see that because I think that keyword is going to make it clear. You know, if people are knocking on your door saying, I'd love to hire you. Also, communicator is one of those very general terms as well. So because your headline is super short right now, you have the ability to maybe add to it. So maybe senior radio or on air radio, and also do you think of yourself as a journalist? Because that word actually has value in the marketplace now. When you have the ability to practice journalism, maybe you can teach journalism. Those keywords are going to help surface. Like, so I would definitely think about if journalism is in the cards, I might add that keyword. But the other thing I'd love to see, Martina, is maybe a comma, which then says, telling me more about the kind of stories that you either love to do or you've done. So if you are focused more on health or business or technology, even if it's aspirational, I think that would help to make it more unique. And then, let's see, lecturer. Okay, David. Lecturer with an interest in writing and editing leadership and faith articles. The unique value proposition is there. I completely know you're interested in covering issues around faith, so that's great. The question I would have is the word lecturer, right? Because it could be mean one thing here and one thing there. To me, it sounds like you're an educator, right? And sometimes universities get into all that terminology stuff, but we don't need to in the real world. I would love to know what you teach as well. And also, when you say leadership, I might take that word out and just say educator, interested in writing, and I would fill in the blank here, writing stories about health, climate change, whatever it is, just a little more, or faith. And if you mean by leadership, you're editing or you're leading teams, I would add that. You have 2 lines of valuable real estate, everyone, on that LinkedIn platform. I would use all that space. So many people are like, well, I'm going to keep it short because it looks visually pleasing. But the problem is you got to think about this algorithm, right? It's like this computer brain. It needs your help. It needs your help to understand who you are very quickly. But looks good. Okay, journalism professor / media literacy expert / public speaker and journalist. Yeah, really nice and clean, lots of great keywords. The one thing I might do is when you say, Christine, public speaker, this to me is very, very interesting. It's one thing as I would love to know what do you speak about? What are the issues? Typically, when you're a public speaker, you are talking about either an issue or you are a coach of some sort. I'd love to know a little bit more, and you definitely have that real estate or that room to do it. Journalist, writer, producer, Catherine looks very good, nice and clean. Again, I think with the competitive market, I'd love to see a little bit more, only because we have that real estate. Mimi, journalist, content creator, communication expert, actress, image consultant, entrepreneur, aspiring world traveler, and real estate manager. Okay, she's done it all. All right, I like it. So the one thing I will say is, in the social media marketing space, so if you are interested in jobs, if you are open to jobs that not only take you into the world of traditional journalism, but you're open to jobs, let's say in content marketing, or with many of the tech companies that hire people with journalism or communication skills nowadays, I would say including things like content creator, content marketing is a win-win for you, because those are the keywords that they would be using in their searches for candidates. So thinking about our traditional use of language, like we're a journalist or we're a reporter, but if we want jobs at Apple that pay us a decent amount of money to live based on our, like we can have a living wage and all of that, then we want to look at their job listings and we want to look at the terms they use and use those terms as well. So I thought this was a good example of that. I also love the different parts of oneself revealed here. Mary wrote, lecturer with 30 years of broadcast production experience on television. So one thing I would say is In your headline, okay, let me talk about the algorithm real quick. The algorithm is going to add every position that you put down on your LinkedIn profile. So it actually is doing the math on how many years of work you say you have. So that's why if you do, so I get this question sometimes, which is, Yumi, I had a long window of time I didn't work. So what do I do? Sorry, that's my doggy. 1 second.
The reality of working from home, right?
Exactly.
Keeping it real.
But yes, so it was the question is, what do I do if there was a period of time where I wasn't working? And the problem is that with the algorithm, it's like, oh, she wasn't working those 5 years. So it is something that you'll want to think about, leaving gaps, because you don't either want to put that position or you weren't working, because the algorithm is kind of doing the math on that. The other thing I would say is the other concern that sometimes folks get is, well, if I put the number of years in my experience, will that somehow, make it harder for me to get a job, because of things that other people think, right? Because they might be looking for someone. So that's also a concern. What I would say is this, because we know that the 30 years is going to be able to come up in another section, which is I call summary. I would love to know more about what you did when you were in broadcast production. Were you a senior producer, leading teams during coverage, during breaking coverage? Give us a little bit more of that headline kind of unique value proposition, but just, that's great. Okay, seasoned broadcast journalist with a passion for mentoring upcoming journalists and defending women's rights. I like that a lot. One thing I would say again, any word that you can take out that is somewhat general, like seasoned, experienced, all of those words I think we should go ahead and eliminate. And if we want to let people know that we have lots of experience, let's think about it as action. So something like, for example, broadcast journalist. Does that mean you are a TV reporter, radio reporter, audio storyteller? And then with a passion to me means it's like if we had to cut down words, maybe we go to, have you done that? Have you been mentoring upcoming journalists? And if so, what I might say is TV news reporter mentoring aspiring journalists and defending women's rights, because now you're in action. Does that make sense? Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. We're running out of time, but we have a number of great headlines that have a tagline, communication with a passion for language and psychology, strategic communication expert for NGOs. Yeah, these are looking really, really good. Okay, and the one thing I would say overall is be sure that you include one thing that makes you unique. So if you have a really strong, like you've got journalism student, film director, and scriptwriter, think about, well, what kind of scripts do you write? What type of films do you direct? Because we all probably have areas or topics that we like, and that's different, because you are really trying to stand out too. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again, and
This is so good, Yumi. Truly so helpful. And thanks to everybody for participating in chat, because that makes it even better. It's great. One person was just asking if you could repeat the last sentence. I don't know if you remember what your last sentence was.
From the chat box, or
somebody from chat was just asking. They said they missed the last thing you said.
Okay, I think what I was saying is I see a lot of great headlines that include general keywords such as communication enthusiast, creative writer, communication expert, reporter. The thing I'd like to encourage each of you to do now, maybe tonight or in the next few days, is, okay, now imagine that one TV news producer sees all of these headlines. How will that TV producer choose their next reporter based on these headlines? It would be very hard, right? Because we all kind of sound alike. So what I would encourage each of you is to take that risk, which is tell me what you care about. Even if I hire you to do something else, knowing that you care about this for now will help you stand out. Okay,
Awesome.
so I am, okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the, 1 second. And I'm gonna hold on 1 sec.
So great job, you guys, with staying engaged. I'm glad that you're asking her questions, because that's a way you can really get a lot out of it. Did you feel like you're learning so much? I feel like I'm getting some messages from people saying this is so good, such rich content.
Well, thank you very much. I was trying to get the volume in the living room turned down. So, okay, so I just wanted to get to the right slide. And now I'm going to share my screen with you and present. Okay, so we talked about the unique value proposition. We did some examples. Okay, and we took time to write a headline that I hope you continue to work on and post even now, because it's looking really good. Okay, so the next part of the profile, I feel like if you do just these two things, you're going to be in good shape, which is to create a summary. Now, once again, everyone thinks, well, Yumi, visually, if I'm on my phone, I want to make it short and sweet, but that's not really serving you, because again, there's an algorithm that's like going, well, what are you about and who do you care about, and all of those things. So here's an example of a summary, a good one. So Erin Stock, this was a couple years ago, I found her profile, which is she took 1, 2, 3, 4 long paragraphs to tell her story. So the way that I encourage people to think about the summary on LinkedIn is think about it as your cover letter. Once again, we're not able to meet in person many times. Recruiters are making decisions based on what they find virtually, looking at profiles, for example. So what would your cover letter say about you if they read it online? So here's what Erin says. My background includes a mix of journalism and digital communications, with a focus on stories that matter. I believe deeply in the power of information and of people. Using my skills in reporting, communications, and facilitation, I am able to get the story out and engage communities both online and offline more deeply. Now I'm going to stop there for a moment, because the first paragraph does what we all know journalists do every time they put a story together, which is they focus on the lead. They focus on overall, what's this story about? What are you going to hear about this person? So oftentimes when I'm working with even like people from the C-suite, so high up executives, and they're, struggling to write the summary, I'm like, it's not what you've done over the course of 30 years. It's who you are overall. So thinking about who you are is what I would encourage each of you to do. Over time, over your experiences, over the combination of things that have happened in your life, how would you define yourself? What is your fight? What is the battle? If you are out there to get people to engage, get the story out, engage communities both online and offline more deeply, that's what I would love to hear in paragraph 1. And then second, what she does in paragraph 2 is she backs it up with evidence. And this is called a metric. So, whether you look at it from a business or a marketing perspective, you've got to show, or even a journalistic perspective, we must show evidence of what we state as true. So she then says, one of my most exciting projects is working with an innovative nonprofit journalism organization that has pioneered a new form of conflict reporting. So that's the evidence that one needs to determine whether Erin is actually a person who has made a difference in communities, right? And to me, that's good evidence. She keeps it, though, conversational. And this is where I also find a huge challenge. Many people who have written resumes where you're talking in that kind of terse third person perspective, it doesn't really work well on social media. And LinkedIn, believe it or not, is social media. It calls itself a professional network, but the way that we engage with LinkedIn is through our social networks, right? So one thing I would encourage you to do when writing your own summary, maybe today, tomorrow, in the next few weeks or months, is to think about the projects, the stories, the classes that you've done where you did something and you felt great about it, that you did something and you knew that that was a moment for you. I remember meeting a student a couple years ago who took my broadcast news writing class, and she ended up submitting her radio piece, which was just a script, but she decided to record it into a local university, competition, and she won. And so that now becomes something she can put into her summary, right? That even though she's a student and she hasn't yet gotten hired by, Fox or, KCBS or whatever, she can say that in one of her, she won an award for a radio story she did on international students who were grappling with the restrictions caused by COVID and not being able to get back to school. So that's something that we could all do. And then, we talked about passion. I saw some of you in your headlines talk about passion. So instead of maybe focusing that, in your headline, you might bring it down or emphasize here. Another passion line is facilitation. I love helping groups meet better and organize a facilitation user group in DC. Again, evidence along with aspiration. And then last, this is an important thing, because we know on LinkedIn, best practices, people, the whole idea is you should only connect with people you know. That's the LinkedIn policy. They actually have a policy against what's called open networkers or lions, because the idea is that you only want to create a quality network. But what this means is that people you really are interested in and you meet on LinkedIn, you might not be able to connect with them because they might not want to connect with you. However, if you were to leave a calling card, a business card, and they did too, then I would know I could get in touch with Aaron through Twitter. So this is also a recommendation, that knowing that not everyone is going to connect on LinkedIn because they value quality over quantity, how can I get people to reach out to me without having them send me a connection request is something to think about. Okay, so what I would say for your summary, and this is something you won't have to do today, I don't think you could finish, it takes time, but I would definitely encourage you as homework, what excites you the most, in your life, like all of the school projects, all of the travel, all of the jobs you've had, all of the stories that you want to or have covered. What excites you the most? Next, put your job title aside and share what you do and describe the problems you want to solve or you have solved. And the reason, I forgot to say this earlier when I was talking about headline, but the reason why you don't have to worry about your job title is because once you put your job title in where you put your, you add your job, the algorithm knows your job title. It will not be lost. So I think that's what some people don't remember or don't know, of course. Okay, 3, call out career highlights. If you made career pivots or have seemingly unrelated roles, connect the dots. So I remember reading that one headline where the person has done all these amazing different things. In your summary is where you can connect the dots. Let us know how, for example, if I were to tell a little bit my story, I moved around every 3 years. My father was in the US Army. I was born in Germany. I lived in Japan, then we moved to Kentucky, then Virginia, then Hawaii, and then I ended up in Southern California and then Northern. You know the story, right? But the question is, how do I connect that dot? I am a traveler. I have the wandering bug. And that is why I became a journalist. And that is why every time, I'm out in the world learning about people I don't know about and moving and seeing different countries, it really fills my heart. So that's the story. That's what we're trying to do when we think about summary. And yeah, let's see, what time is it? Okay, so it's 8:55. I'm just going to talk about very quickly some other things that you can do when you are building up your profile. The articles that you write, all you have to do is add a URL, and you can have that article showcased on your profile, and I'll show you that live. Other things to do, I would say, is there's a skills section that I'll show you live, and also ask for recommendations and join groups. So I want to go live and go to LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm going to use myself here. Okay. So several things that I've been talking about with the LinkedIn profile. So again, banner image, your headshot, the headline where you want to talk about your keywords that say who you are, but also what you do. And then when I talk about URLs that you can add, let's say there's an article that you wrote, all you have to do is hit this pencil, and that you would be able to either add, delete. These are some of the articles I've recently written. And the cool thing is it's simply just adding a URL. I put in my headline. I can put in a little bit of a description. And then what happens is on a LinkedIn profile, it shows up as part of your profile. So it makes it very easy for recruiters to go, oh, she's writing these type of stories, without having, the thing is most people just don't want to jump to 10 different sites to find out very quickly whether they want to go to the next level. Okay, in terms of experience, as I mentioned, your job title is going to show up and it's going to impact the algorithm because you put it here. And so that's something to remember. And then skills, I mentioned skills. So on the LinkedIn platform, there's only 2 places where third parties, other people besides yourself, can say you're good at something. And so that's why it's definitely important to take the time to fill out skills, to add a new skill. So I'll show you an example here. I hit add a new skill. And so they'll give you suggestions, again, based on what you've already put into your profile. They're saying, Yumi, you could add communication, mentoring. I didn't think about that. So if I wanted to add education, for example, I could say, okay, and hit save. And so what happens is that's added. Now what you're seeing here is over time, people in your network are going to endorse you just because that's kind of how it's happened over the years. And so what happens is when people go, well, does Yumi know something about social media? Well, she's got 99 plus endorsements. Or, she seems to know less about magazines, right? Because she's only got 38. And so, excuse me, this is definitely one way that recruiters can quickly see what others think you're good at. And just move that. The other thing is remember I was saying like how you can populate your profile to make sure as many sections are filled out as possible. So if you do have publications, you can actually add them in your profile. If you won honors and awards, if you speak different languages, if you're part of organizations, and of course recommendations, I encourage you to get at least 3. And essentially, you can ask within the LinkedIn platform. So I could go ask for a recommendation, and then I could find someone, and I could say, hey, continue, and I could send out a rec request. No thanks, I won't do that right now. Discard. Okay, any other questions right now?
This is so good. Yeah. Anybody, if you have questions, feel free to pop it in chat. Let's see. We're hearing Yumi, you are amazing. Um,
Yeah, one thing I didn't get to talk about is in
yeah.
terms of finding sources on
Yes, I was going to ask you about that for
so for
working.
example, one easy way to, let's say you're looking for people to talk to at Apple. So one easy way to do that is do a keyword search of Apple and then wait a second. And then you'll see that Apple has a company page. Most companies have what LinkedIn calls a company page. And how this can be helpful to a journalist is when I scroll down, I see people, and then I see that a certain number of people working in education, another people working in San Francisco, and when I hit people highlights, I can see where they live. I can get some data on Apple, people I might know, and when I go back, insights. Yeah, I can get some data on that. But the key for journalists is, if you're under deadline pressure and you're looking for someone that you can reach at Apple, you want people who can talk to you. And the key is, if I go to the company page and do a little bit of digging, which I did, now I can see connections that work here that I'm connected to. That is the gold. So JC Domingo, who used to be my student at SF State, is a technical sourcer at Apple. So imagine I'm under deadline pressure. I need to reach someone at Apple or someone who can tell me, hey, JC, I heard about there might be a fire over at that building. JC might tell me off the record. But the way that I found that JC, I didn't know this till today, I didn't know, but the way I did that was to go to the Apple company page. Okay, so that's definitely
So
one
good.
great way to use LinkedIn. Oh, and by the way, when you are looking at other people's profiles, they can tell that you were there.
Those are the things I wanted to ask you about too. All these things we need to know, because
Yeah.
you could get a premium profile, right? Or account where you can see who's looked at your profile. So that kind of makes it tough, because if you're wanting to check someone out to see if they might be a good person to seek out a job or opportunity or whatever, they can see it. So yeah, tell us some of the things we need to know about the secrets
So
of what people can see and how to hide it.
So if we want to check out all of these different people who work at Apple, maybe we're looking for engineers, at a company, but we don't want all of those folks to know. We have to go to settings, and let me see. And they've changed this several times, so I'm just going to see. Okay, this is it. So they've put it nice and high. So once again, I'm just going to show you where I was, and that way you can get to it yourself. Functionality is different on desktop and laptop versus your mobile. So some of the things I'm pointing out, I'm doing on a desktop. But let's say you're on desktop, you go to Me and you click on Settings and Privacy. You click on Settings and Privacy and you go to Visibility. And then when you go to Visibility, you'll see Profile Viewing Options. As journalists, this is going to be key, because you don't want a company or somebody knowing you're looking. So what you have to do is you have to go to Anonymous. You have to click on, by default, if you were to check it out right now, you're probably completely transparent and visible. But you can see I'm on Anonymous. And
Smart.
now here is the challenge. Let's say that you want to know who looked at your profile, but you're in anonymous mode. If you are in anonymous mode, you will not be able to view those profiles. So what I encourage journalists to do is, when you're in sleuth mode, right, target stealth mode, and you're looking at people's profiles, go to anonymous. But as soon as you're done and you're ready now to build the brand and get your word out, go back and toggle to transparent.
Wow. Okay.
So that way that, let's say you're promoting a new book, go back to transparent.
Okay.
Because what'll happen is, without having to pay for a premium membership, by doing that, I will be able to see the people who viewed my profile.
Okay.
Now, in my case, because I worked at LinkedIn, apparently one of the benefits is that I get a free premium membership. even now. So one thing I can see is like when I go to who's viewed my profile, I get to see who's viewed my profile, unless of course they've been anonymous. And this is helpful because, you know, maybe these are people I go, oh, they viewed my profile, but I really want to talk to them. Then I might take that first initial action of, hey, what's going on? So this is available even though I'm in anonymous mode because, you know, either I've paid or have a premium membership. I really wouldn't, you know, people ask me, well, Yumi, should I get a premium membership? I kind of feel like, first of all, let's go ahead and just, you know, feel it out. How often are you on LinkedIn? Is it working for you? I know that I've worked with some reporters who were doing extensive searches and they really wanted to have better search results. Well, in that case, it made sense to get a premium membership because when you have a premium membership, you can see a lot more of the profiles of people, even though they're not in your network of first, second, and third degree connections.
Oh, so good to know. Okay, we have a lot of questions in chat. Do you want me to call them out to you?
Yeah, let me see here.
We could start with Martina, I think at 11:01 a.m.
Who in my network is good to ask for recommendations? Okay. You want to ask people you know really well for recommendations. And I would actually, even though LinkedIn makes it really easy for you to send that rec request, I personally would not do that. I would say, let's say that I wanted my boss, you know, I do a lot of freelance writing for Ed Carpenter. So in that case, in fact, here, let's just go down to recommendations here. Okay, so in this case, I did ask Ed for a letter of rec, and he wrote it, but I reached out to him via email. Better if you can phone call somebody and just say, hey, I really want to get a rec, you know, what are your thoughts? Because you really want to make sure that person would say really positive things about you. Because otherwise, a rec letter that's mediocre is worse than not having one. Okay. How does a senior journalist keep from appearing too old in their profile? Great question. So one thing I would say is, you know, it's a real concern, number one, and it shouldn't be. But what I would say is, and I've heard this from other people who've done this strategy is, let me go to Yumi, is what they'll do is they'll leave out descriptors of like how many years in their headline, so you just omit it. And then when you go to your summary, you also omit like in my, you know, 28 years or whatever it is. Now, for me personally, you know, I'm less worried only because, right, I'm not, you know, yeah. But so that's something that you'll have to think about because that is one way that folks have said, look, before you judge me based on these factors, I want you to know me. And so I get that as well. Let's see, great presentation. On my, I see achievement being posted. Would you please? Okay, achievements. Is that the question? So achievements, yes. Okay, so you're going to see a section called accomplishments, and when you click on it, it's going to give you, click on this plus button, it's going to give you a drop-down box of options. So what LinkedIn is asking here is, well, do you want to add a new publication that you've just posted or written or edited? Do you have a new patent? And by the way, if you have a new patent, that's going to weigh heavily into the algorithm, helping you to surface higher in search results. So they love startups and, you know, entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. Courses. Let's say you took a course, did a project. The reason why you want to take the time to fill these sections in, as opposed to just putting it into maybe the job that you were at, or just adding it to a line in your university, is because this is a computer system, right? It works by code. It works by all of the factors that you put in. And by doing it here, the algorithm is going, wow, this person has honors and awards. whereas it's harder to surface and find when you put it into summary or somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Don't you feel uncomfortable? Yes, good question. Exposing yourself to people outside your significant others. This is
Mhm.
a very, very good question, David. So to me, when I think about what I've posted on this profile, most of like everything here is professional. These are all things about myself that could be discovered if, and I'll just do this right here. Um, when I don't know how many of you have done this. I guess the question is how many of you have not done this, right? If you do a Google search of yourself, you're going to find out that things that you either wanted or didn't want are all going to come up. You have no control over what shows up and when you do a search result. So if you can see here, you've got all of these things, you've got, rate my professors, right? You've got so on and so on and so forth. Now, if we go back to LinkedIn, the one thing I like is I get to shape my narrative, right? So someone's going to search for me on Google, but if they took another second and came to my LinkedIn profile, they can see what really matters to me, right? That I was a journalist. I was there, during the 1992 Los Angeles riots, and this is my narrative. So, yeah, I just kind of feel like so much of our world, like our public self, is already out there. What you're doing with a profile, you're creating your own narrative. How does one market self through this platform as people do not need your service? Okay, so how do I market my work? Okay, so let's say that you have work that it depends on what kind of work you want people to see. So some of the things that LinkedIn will do is LinkedIn will, they have these boxes, so open to work, and if you click on it, here you get to choose, again, this is something that goes into the algorithm. It says, these are the job titles that I would like to be identified with, even if they're not in my headline. Workplaces that I'd be interested in working. These are all things that you can choose, flexible, contract, part-time, and then you can click on here and you can say all LinkedIn members or just recruiters. So these are things that LinkedIn now has given you that option of doing. This is all private to you. And so this makes it easy if you are looking for me. For me, I'm always looking for the side gig. So, being able to tailor it here has been really helpful. This is fairly new. And then here, if you have find potential clients by showcasing services, this is relatively new as well. So let's say that you have services to offer, you could use this tool as well. Oh, the other thing is another free way to market oneself is to always add a post. And if not every day like you do on Twitter or whatever, is once, I would say once a week maybe. It's surely not as often, but come to LinkedIn and post something that you've either done or post even just when you're here, um, choosing to start a post and say, reflect on, a Supreme Court decision that you have just heard about. It makes you part of an ongoing conversation. So people are more likely to look at your profile that day because you've taken that action. When you don't post, people forget that you're there. And so when you post, it's a reminder for others who know you, but also others who may not know you to check out your profile. So that is an easy and free way to kind of market yourself. So if you are, let's say, someone who's been talking about social justice and diversity, if you are constantly, not constantly, like once a week or every few days, posting about an article that you read on that issue and your reflection, people start to see you as a thought leader or someone who can speak and is speaking about those issues. And really, when journalists are looking for sources, that's how they would find experts. So that's the thing that you have to kind of think about when you think about, well, should I post on LinkedIn, right? And how often? And usually people will do it for a professional reason. I'll just show you. This is Doug Mitchell, who's founder and project director at Next Generation. This and next week, Next Generation Radio is part of a grant-funded initiative that provides journalism and media support to the South Pacific. For us, that means we are working on 2 back-to-back projects. So this is a really great use of this. You know, Doug is posting something that is somewhat promotional, but LinkedIn followers are okay with promotional content because the #1 reason LinkedIn members like being on LinkedIn is to be productive. They want tips. They want, career insights. They want to see good examples that they might either mirror, support, fund, so on. And this was a good use of Doug Mitchell's time here. And so using the LinkedIn platform maybe to post something to showcase your expertise and your area of specialty is a great way to stay relevant without constantly going, okay, I'm going to post 6 times or anything like that. Okay.
And real quick, Yumi, for the visibility, if you post something and share something, or whether it's your post or something you comment on or you're mentioned in, is that seen by anyone on the LinkedIn platform, or do they have to be connected to you to see that?
So it depends on how your settings are.
Okay.
But most of the time, for example, so when you go to your profile, you're going to see activity.
Mm-hmm.
And see all activity. So anything that you post, when you go here, edit post, you ought to be able to control it. Is when you're, it's okay. Let's see. When I'm posting, start a post. Okay. So when you're posting, you can click on anyone, or you can click on connections only, or you can click on no one. So you would have to take the action on what, visibility that you want with your post, but you would have to do it at the time you're posting.
And that one right there is for the comments. Is that who
This
can
is a
comment?
comment. Yeah. So but let's say that I'm trying to create a post, and this is me creating a post. So let's say, and then I go click on anyone, and I have these choices.
Okay. Interesting. And then if you comment on something or post something,
it is part of the public activities. So
okay, gotcha. And it shows up.
Yeah, it shows up within either the network and how you have your settings.
Okay.
So it's very much like most platforms will allow you to go, okay, I want to be visible, or I want to, Facebook is very good at this, where it's like, I want the public to see this post, or I want just my friends to see this post.
Somebody is asking, Pili is asking, how do employers recruit employees through LinkedIn?
Yeah, so employers pay a lot of money. And, just imagine the premium feature, right? So I might pay, let's say $30 so I have personal insights. Well, recruiters pay for very expensive licensing fees, if you will, because they can look at all 756 million members.
Wow.
Each profile in full, and they're willing to pay that. And that's one of the ways I think LinkedIn really set itself apart. I recall when I was working there, I go, wow, this is such a smart business model, because unlike at that time, Facebook is still struggling for ad revenue and struggling for, how do you monetize, all of these people? Well, LinkedIn had worked out a system where they had, essentially recruiters paying top dollar for access to all of these users on this platform. And that is definitely the way they do it. So
yeah, smart.
Yeah. Let's see, what would you include a list of your most prominent interviewees? Well, if you mean, Martina, are they high profile, like people you've interviewed? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just depends, I guess. I mean, for me, I think telling people that you've worked with high profile or interviewed them tells me a lot about what kind of stories you've done and who you are. So I would say yes. Let's see. Okay, how do you see journalism in the context? Can we be contextual and objective at the same time, especially when social media lacks professionalism? Well, that is a good question. Um, so when you talk about social media, I'm going to assume that you're talking about, and feel free to unmute and then let me know, but that you're talking about how there are a lot of rumors, innuendos, and gossip, and just mistruth, untruth, right? False stuff going on within the social media space. Is that part of the what you're getting at, Jimmy Cheese? Okay, if that is the case, then there is a definite concern across social media platforms on that misinformation and disinformation that continues to run rampant. But one could argue that within the social media space, we have seen and heard stories that we would not have seen on what we consider mainstream or legacy media, at least in the United States. And I think true in other countries. So it is, I think, a balance that we are trying to strike in terms of what is the role of social media when it comes to so-called objective or accurate journalism, but also what is the role of mainstream or legacy media when it comes to fairness and accuracy and reflection of what's really going on. So yeah.
That's good. The one other question there was, how do you change your location
Yes.
setting?
So if you go, and this might be a fun, they may have changed it so many times. So me settings. Well, okay. So are you talking about this information here? Like if you say San Francisco Bay Area, if you are, you would go to the pencil here, and you should be able to change your location right here.
Gotcha.
Okay. So it's the once you're on profile, again, I'm on desktop, and then you click on the pencil, and then you just simply scroll down. It's a little bit harder on the mobile, and I think that's why it's a little more confusing. Okay.
And then how important are recommendations? One other question from Elias. And then also if everybody could post and chat as she's answering that one, tell us where you're dialing in from. It's always just fun to see all over the world where people are. So tell us where you are. But for Elias's question, how important are those recommendations?
So when I worked at LinkedIn, it was clear that having at least 3 letters of recommendation, that was really important. And I still think it's important because the letters of recommendation and the skills endorsements are the only 2 places that former, employers, students, educators, your teachers, those are the only places that they can tell recruiters and others that you're great at what you say you are. So I would definitely encourage you to at least get, well, 3. And you don't have to do it right away, but it's a goal.
And then Julia, who's joining us from the UK, is just asking, is it easy to actually create an article? For example, add photos in with text, etc. Or is it better to add a link to, say, WordPress-based website?
So clearly, every social media platform rewards you if you create content that is unique to that platform. And LinkedIn is just like every other platform. So if you were to create a blog post on LinkedIn, you get some rewards for doing that because they then get to put it into their content system, and maybe they might feature it. They might make it a post that others see. So deciding to write an article like this and publish it, very easy to do. It's a very easy word management, content management system here. Can reward you because LinkedIn can now take that content if they like it, promote it. I know people who have gotten their articles featured. So you can only do that if you use the post here. Now, what I've seen as a happy medium is that I've seen people start writing, few paragraphs and say, I was doing a lot of research around you know, COVID-19 protocols, and you know, you can find out more in my article for Time Magazine. So they'll do something where they write a little bit of unique content, hyperlink it to Time Magazine, and that seems to also be helpful. And one thing I will say is it's worth doing because, again, your profile, when you post a blog, you know, when you write within the LinkedIn platform, they're going to have it featured as part of your articles here. So it's kind of like a showcase. So I see a lot of people from Kenya.
Yeah, so we had two of our members of the Media Project who are in Kenya are the ones who said they would love to hear about this. So it's fun to see that they recruited a lot of people to join us. Yes, and we have several who are going to be watching them on video as well. But this was so very helpful, Yumi. I can't tell you, just personally. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Very much for your time. And I just want to be sure too, I'm going to share my screen quickly just so people do know that you can follow us on social media. This is part of the Media Project, which we serve international journalists and also student journalists here in the US and all over the world. So you can check us out on Instagram, the Media Project, or Twitter and Facebook. Would love to stay in touch. And what I think this really shows us is for our journalists in Kenya who wanted to learn about this, they came up with the idea. Paul Glatter, who's executive director, knows Yumi, had heard you speak before about this. So this is what it's all about, is just really being able to help to connect with one another and to share our expertise. So it's so wonderful to have so many of you join us. And Yumi, any final thoughts or words before we go?
No, it's just been really a pleasure. It's early, but I really feel rejuvenated every time I get together with journalists and people trying to make a difference in this world. It just gives me so much more hope. And here's to 2022.